You know, some stories, they're so short, so simple, but man, they just stick with you for days. Today, we're going to tear apart one of the internet's most effective pieces of short-form horror. It is an absolute masterclass in building tension and then delivering a total knockout punch. So let's dive in. Okay, before we even get into the story itself, let's start with this question. Because the real power of this tale, it isn't about monsters or jump scares. Not really. It's about taking the one place you are supposed to feel the most secure, your home, and twisting it into a source of absolute terror. You know, every really great, scary story, it starts somewhere totally normal. And the stage for this one is a scene we can all picture perfectly. A babysitter showing up for what should be a quiet night on the job. And just look at how perfectly routine all of this is. So the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Peter, they leave their instructions. The babysitter, Samara, she follows them to the letter. The kids are fed, they're in bed by 9:30, and by 10:30, the whole house is still. It's the perfect picture of domestic calm, and that is exactly the point. So the story has carefully built this little bubble of safety. Samara's totally in control, the children are safe upstairs, and there is absolutely zero reason to think anything is wrong. She just settles in to watch some TV, just like any other night on any other babysitting gig. And this, right here, is where that perfect bubble of safety gets its first tiny little pinprick. The story introduces just one single object that's going to start to unravel, well, everything. It all starts with just a feeling. You know that feeling, right? That primal, ancient instinct that just tells you, you are not alone. She's just sitting there, watching TV, and all of a sudden, the hair on the back of her neck stands up. So she turns around to check, and there it is, just sitting there. A clown doll. Now, the story doesn't say it moved or made a sound. It's just there. And this right here is the key moment. See, it's not just a thing in the room anymore. It feels like an observer. In her mind, this inanimate object has suddenly become animate. It's looking at her. And this taps directly into a really powerful psychological concept. And that concept is called the uncanny. I mean, think about it. A doll is supposed to be a kid's toy, right? It's a symbol of innocence. But you put that same doll in a dimly lit room, you give it that fixed stare, and suddenly it becomes deeply, deeply unsettling. It's familiar, but it's just wrong. All right, so now the story really starts to ramp up the fear. It moves from something you see to something you hear, and then ultimately to a battle that's happening inside Samara's own head. So after she tries to just, shake it off and ignore the doll, she hears something. Something unmistakable. Breathing. She mutes the TV, and it's dead silent. She tries to tell herself, no, it was just my imagination. But that little seed of fear, it's already been planted. The house is no longer quiet, it's just silent. So what you're seeing here is basically the war that's happening inside her head. Her rational brain is saying it's just a toy, you're alone, you're just spooking yourself. But her primal instinct, that gut feeling, is screaming that she's being watched. That feeling of eyes burning in the back of her skull, wow, that is such a powerful and honestly relatable description of pure dread. So she does what, honestly, any of us would probably do. She tries to solve the problem logically. She's had enough of the creepy feeling. So she gets up, she takes the source of her anxiety, the doll, and moves it into another room, shuts the door. And you know what? It works. That creepy feeling is gone. She feels relaxed again. The threat's been contained. Or so she thinks. And this brings us to the climax. This is the moment a simple, totally mundane event, a phone call from the parents checking in, becomes the delivery mechanism for absolute horror. So, the phone rings. It's Mrs. Peter on the line. Hey, how's everything? Samara says, great, the kids were wonderful. It's all just a perfectly normal conversation, and it kind of lulls both Samara and us, right? It pulls us back into that false sense of security. And then, because she's feeling relaxed again, Samara mentions the doll, almost like a funny little side note. She explains she felt a bit uncomfortable, so she moved it, and she's hoping that's okay. It's a moment of just casual confession. It's such a simple question, but just feel the chill in those words, the confusion in Mrs. Peter's voice. That's the sound of reality starting to fracture. This is the exact moment that dread comes rushing back, but like 100 times stronger. And then, There it is, the punchline, the twist, the one line that flips the entire story on its head and reveals what's really been happening. The doll was never a doll. Because you see, this story was never about a haunted doll. Let's break down exactly why this super minimalist narrative is so unbelievably effective. The true horror sinks in the second you realize that feeling of being watched, the sound of breathing, it was all real. There was someone in the house with her the entire time, just sitting in a chair watching her. And she was just feet away from them. I mean, this story is a total masterclass in these techniques. It weaponizes the uncanny, it invades a safe space, it builds this incredible psychological dread, but honestly, its greatest strength is the power of suggestion. The story never actually describes the person in the chair. Our own imagination does all the heavy lifting, and we create a monster that's way scarier than anything a writer could ever spell out for us. And that just shows you the true power of efficiency in horror, right? It takes just 7 words, 7 simple words, we don't have any clown doll, to completely detonate the reality of the story and unleash its full terror. So, what happens next? Does she get out? What about the kids upstairs? We have no idea. This story just ends. It leaves us with all these terrifying questions because it understands that the fear of the unknown is by far the most powerful fear there is. And really, that's what I want to leave you with. This story makes a powerful argument that true horror isn't about what's chasing you down the hallway. It's about the shape you can just barely make out, sitting perfectly still in the corner of a dark room.